Hey guys, this is Frank. I'm going to give you a quick video tour of my car. It's a 2002 Toyota MR2 Spyder, and it has a stock 1ZZ FE long block that had approximately 70,000 miles on it when I got it. And the big thing that I've done to this car, besides all kinds of exterior modifications, suspension modifications and so on, is that I've supercharged the engine, and I've put in a C30-64 Rotrex. So let's start with that. I used a solution for mounting the Rotrex which is a little bit different from what most Rotrex implementations have done, and that is I've placed the Rotrex on a bracket in the same location of where the power steering pump would go on a 1ZZ. And of course, on our cars, it's just on the power steering delete bracket. So it's down there, you can see it, it's kind of peeking out. And of course, this supercharger is belt driven, so anyway, it's down there, and it takes in air from a filter that is located right here, right above the cross member, and then the air feeds through. I'm following the path of my flashlight right into the supercharger where it gets compressed, comes back out, and it comes around the engine through an intercooler and then back around and into the throttle body. Alright, so let's go through this in a little bit more detail. I've shown you the supercharger already, Rotrex C30-64. My exhaust header is a PPE that I've wrapped for reasons of heat protection. And I also had to slightly modify one of the runners, the number 1 cylinder runner, to make room for the Rotrex compressor. Okay, so then the other important thing here is this intercooler. It's an air to water intercooler, and so it's taking in compressed air from the Rotrex and it's cooling it back down. It cools it down approximately to ambient temperature. This intercooler has a great efficiency. It's upward of 90%. And the water lines from the intercooler connect all the way to the front underneath the car. And here on the front I've mounted a front mount heat exchanger. Maybe you can see it. There's a fan on the heat exchanger. And right over here is the pump, Bosch Cobra pump, that runs the circulation of the water for the intercooler. The lines are coming all the way from the back into the pump and then back. Alright, I've also relocated the battery. This is a lightweight PC680 battery relocated to the front. It's an AGM battery, and this relocation of the battery makes room for the intercooler and all that stuff in the back. So let's go back there and let's resume. So, oops, sorry, I blocked the lens. Alright, so the important thing about this intercooler is the way it's set up is so it's self-purging. Alright, so the water comes in the bottom and then it comes out the top, and goes into a catch tank or a surge tank, and then from the tank it goes back down to the pump. And this design makes sure that any air that would be in the system would be purged out into this tank. Alright, and then looking down underneath here, another feature of this setup is that the throttle body, the MAF is located right at the throttle body. So you can see, maybe you can sort of see the MAF back there underneath all that tangle of hoses, which I'll explain in a minute. So the MAF is right here, and at this point I'm just using a stock 1ZZ MAF. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about all these hoses all over the place. This is a vacuum distribution box. It is fed from the brake booster line, and then it feeds a number of vacuum clients. I've got one line for my boost gauge in the car, another line for the JNS Safeguard. This line goes to the Greddy BOV blow-off valve, and then I'm also feeding the VSV for the emissions evap, and also what else have I got there? Of course, I got to feed the brake booster line. And what else have I got? I got one more line that can't think of what it is. All right, so yeah, it's the two brake booster lines, one in, one out. So all this comes through this client, and then I have a separate vacuum line just dedicated to my ECU, which is a map ECU that tunes map versus RPM, fuel tables and ignition tables of map versus RPM. Okay, so I've reworked the Pcv and crankcase lines. The Pcv comes out of the normal location right here, comes into a catch can, and then in line is a crank vent. Crank vent is a one-way valve that prevents pressurization of the crankcase. And also the crankcase booster is on a crank vent, which is right here, and it vents out to the atmosphere through this little filter. Okay, so I think I've covered everything back here. I built a custom bracket to support the intercooler, and the intercooler floats with the engine. It's not fixed to the fender. Okay, so that's a nice feature of this steel bracket. And what else have I got? I've got a straight mid pipe, no cat, and I have a Megan Racing muffler, which maybe I'll let you hear it in a minute. Okay, you'll see what it sounds like. And now let's look at the interior of the car. Interior has also been customized. Of course, I have a hardtop up here, right? This came from Mike Vitella on Spyder Chat. Great guy. Just really recommend him. Converted the seats to Honda S2000 seats. These are made by Recaro. Really nice seats. Sport seat, not really a racing seat. Okay, yeah. On my other car, which is more of a dedicated race car, I have true racing seats, but these are just a step up from what you have in the Spyder. I have a Sparco steering wheel, 330mm with flat bottom, and the horn is actually a Momo with center ring, fake carbon. Little funny little touch. The shifter is TRD quick shift. We've got some gauges on the dash, which are the AFR gauge, the oil pressure temperature gauge, and the boost gauge with RPM. And on the right, we've got the JNS Safeguard knock gauge, knock monitor. And mounted on my dashboard is the digital controller for the water temperature in the intercooler. This is what turns on and turns off the fan at a set temperature. Okay, and for those of you that are hardcore and are not afraid of looking at some wiring, this is kind of the unholy mess that I've got going on back here. The blue box is the JNS Safeguard. There's a knock conditioner box right above it, and then underneath it is my map ECU, and the stock ECU is in the normal location back there. So it's kind of a mess, really not much I can do about it. Maybe I'll try to clean it up a little, but I've got the wires labeled and I know what everything is. Somehow I can keep track of what everything is, which is important because occasionally you have to troubleshoot and check stuff, and there's dozens of wires running through here. Okay, so what else have we got? On this car at this point, I've got the rear wheels are 15 by 8 with 25 millimeter offset, and I have 225 40 15, or no, make that 225 45 15 BFG Rival S on the back. And I'm running a stagger setup, so on the front I have 15 by 7 with ET35 and 205 50-15 tires. Okay, my suspension is a Sportivo, TRD Sportivo struts with IBAC Pro Kit, lowering springs, and can't really see much of that at this point. I've done some little body mods on the car, like I've changed to the post facelift side vents, and I've also changed to the post facelift tail lights. Okay, so now let's see if we can get the car to start, and we'll see what it sounds like. Alright, let's do that. So I'm going to put the camera right here. See if I can get it to hold steady. Okay, that's going to be safe, I think. Alright, let's start the car. Okay, so maybe that gives you an idea what it sounds like. Yesterday I road dynoed the car. It came in at 150 foot-pounds of torque at 4,500 RPM, and just about 191 horsepower at 6,700 RPM, just before the rev limiter at 6,800. Okay, so that's the little tour of the car. I should mention that it was running at 7.5 pounds of boost. And if you have any questions, just let me know. I'll be happy to answer any questions.